Hello and welcome to Mark's Woodworking Challenges. I am Mark, your host of course, and today we have a hand plane challenge, but more about that in just a bit. First, I want to say that it's been quite a while since my last video. Someone in my house is on the warpath for home remodeling projects, and you can rest assured that that someone is not me. So unfortunately, that's been taking up a lot of my time. It also takes up a lot of my energy. I don't think there's anything quite like a home remodeling deluge to suck the energy right out of you. So at any rate, that's going on. It's been going on. Unfortunately, probably going to be going on for a while. So I will try to get to videos as I can, but if I'm absent for a while, you'll know why. Okay, today's hand plane challenge is maybe not so much, it's sort of half challenge, half editorial. What happened to inspire this video is I regularly see in chat rooms and forums, that someone buys a hot new hand plane, say off of an auction site or somewhere, and the very first thing they do is go out and buy a new blade for it. Maybe even before it gets delivered, for all I know. And I think that in a lot of cases that's probably not necessary. So what I thought we'd do today is just go through this a little bit systematically, and there are some reasons why you don't want to buy a plane, but there are a new plane blade, and there are some reasons why you do want to buy a new plane blade. Now, to qualify this is only about buying a new plane blade. I am not an expert on, or nor do I have a lot of experience with the many fine, excellent examples of replacement plane blades there are out there. So I'm not a metallurgist. I don't, couldn't comment on the good points or bad points of some new alloy out there. I just I just don't have very many of those new alloys. So today's discussion is going to stick to why would you want to buy a new hand blade for your hand plane. Okay, so first of all, there are some very legitimate reasons why you need to buy a new hand plane blade. I'll probably do that throughout the video, so just bear with me. So one reason is you've received your new plane and the blade is basically used up. So in all plane blades, if it gets close to the slot here, I've seen plane blades where the edge was like that. Yeah, that blade is gone. Now, it probably didn't need to get to that point. Probably somebody was out there grinding it way too often. With the right way of sharpening, blades should last a really long time. So you shouldn't have to grind them very much, and you should hone more than grind, and all those things. But nonetheless, somebody else had this plane before you, and they ground it too much, and it's basically used up. So in that case, yeah, you're going to need a new plane blade. Another reason is, you know, the thing was sitting out in the rain. Here's a fine example. I think this came actually out of a coffin smoother, wooden coffin smoother, but it doesn't matter for the purposes of this discussion. If it's really rusty, it's not necessarily bad if it's really rusty, but if it's rusty to the point where it's pitted, you know, you might be able to get the edge to miss all the pits when you flatten the back. Generally, I'm not so lucky. So if it's that far gone, if it's that bad off from rust, and it's, you know, and the pitting is severe, yeah, you know, don't bother trying to make it work. Just buy a new plane blade. Another reason not to, no legitimate reason to buy a new plane blade is someone has possibly damaged it, and that is if it's not flat across the width. I've got my thing on here, but you can tell them if it's not flat across the width, you're not going to be happy. You're never going to get that back of that blade flat. And if you really did try to grind it to get the curve out, you know, it's going to be really thin after that. So that's not good. That would probably only be true, I might say. I should also say that, you know, maybe somebody, a previous owner, has actually damaged it or something. So straight off the bat, you've got your new plane out of the box, your new old plane maybe, and you can tell with any of these three reasons would be enough to say right off the bat that you just got your plane, but now you need to go out and buy a new plane blade. So the second category is your plane blade might need replacing, but you need to study the situation a little bit first. So in that case, one example of that is everybody when they you know, sharpen, the first step in sharpening a plane blade is to flatten the back. And it may look pretty flat. You may not be able to see, you know, any curvature in it or whatnot, but I have seen plane blades where it was just a nightmare to try to get the back flattened. Now, the first thing you do in that case, as I think I've said in previous videos, is you need to get aggressive with that back, and if need be, you go away from your stones and onto sandpaper or something and really try to, you know, grind away metal and make it flat. And and that should work okay. But if for some reason you don't have those things available to you and all you've got to use to flatten the back is an 800 grit Waterstone or something, and you've spent 2 or 3 hours trying to flatten the back and it still isn't flat, well, you know, life is short, and life is too short to be spending days flattening the back of a plane blade. So in that case, yeah, maybe you should go ahead and buy a new one. Second reason you might need a new blade, but you should study it first, is that blade came from someplace not known for selling high quality plane blades. And you know what I'm talking about. Big box stores, a company with the initials HF, for example. So, you know, those kinds of places you know, maybe they operate on narrow profit margins, and they have no choice but to sell a lower cost blade in order to make a profit. It's all business. It's a capitalist system, and they're free to do what they want. But you might not be happy with that blade, and once you use it for a while. So you know, try it for a while if you want. But if it looks like it dulls quickly, and you got it from that company with the HF initials, that's a kind of a smoking gun. So there you have it. That would be a legitimate reason. Once you've studied it a little bit, that would be a legitimate reason to buy a new plane blade. As a corollary to that, if you really know how to sharpen very well, and you know what I'm talking about, you've sharpened it, it shaves hair on your arm, whatever test you like to use, and you're planing with it, and you only do about 2 edges of the board, or 2 faces or whatever, and already the thing needs to be resharpened, you know, that's also kind of a smoking gun. I mean, something's a little wrong with the metallurgy. Maybe somebody screwed up the temper on the metal or something, a previous owner, I'm sure. And in that case, again, that would be an indication that that blade wasn't very good to begin with for some reason. So these are this is the category where you may need to replace the blade, but you should study it a little bit first. Conversely, your blade doesn't necessarily need to be replaced if it chatters. My theory, and feel free to leave, you know, comments in the section below, if it chatters, it probably means that you haven't sharpened very well, or the plane isn't set up correctly. Even a skinny little Stanley blade, once it's sharp and in a plane that's tuned up and known to be flat on the sole and all those other things that you need to do to fettle the plane, even a skinny Stanley blade will still take a good shaving if it's sharp and the plane is tuned up right. So furthermore, I would say that if it's chattering and it's due to the fact that it's not sharp or the plane isn't set up well, buying a thicker blade is not necessarily going to help. So you probably want to study the situation a lot more before you spring for a new blade. Another reason is what you should do is just, especially if you've got like a Stanley, which is what a lot of you guys out there will have, you need to study, you need to understand where that blade came from. My contention is that most Stanley plane blades pre-World War II are probably pretty good. And to determine whether that blade is pre-World War II or not, there'll be a stamp in the top of the blade here. We won't bother to try to look at it on camera, but I'll leave a reference to that in the notes. That stamp will typically tell you when that blade was made. And so, like I say, pre-World War II, it's probably a pretty good usable plane blade. So I would not replace that blade just because in that case. So another reason why you don't necessarily want to replace a blade is because, and maybe this is overly obvious, but it comes from a nice vintage plane that you're eager to use, but there's no replacement blade available. I have a lot of blades back here, a lot of planes back here where, you know, it's a unique blade design for that plane, and, you know, if you need another blade, you're going to have to get a aftermarket example. There won't be any new ones available for it. So those are reasons why you should not replace the plane blade. Lastly, there are some legitimate reasons why you do want to replace the plane blade. Let's say you don't want to stop and touch up the blade. You're four squaring 100 board feet of lumber or something, and you don't want to stop and sharpen or touch up the blade every time. Well, maybe you just, if you have another blade, you have this one in the plane, and then you swap out the other one when this one gets dull, and that way you don't have to sharpen every other time. You let both of them get dull, and then it's maybe more efficient to sharpen both at once. So that's a legitimate thing. I would still use, in that case, the blade that came with it if it was good. I wouldn't buy two replacement blades and throw away the original. Just keep the original, buy another one, swap them out when one gets dull. In a sort of related vein, you know, you've got certain planes that you use a lot, like a joiner or a smoother, and you just want to be able to go a long time between touching up the blade. So for me, I use this guy a lot, and what I've found is if I have a Hawk blade in there, holy cow, that thing will go a long time between sharpenings. And so that's really delightful because this, you know, you pick it up a lot and you want to get to work and you don't want to get diverted into sharpening it just to make it work. And so, you know, for your go-to planes, having a nice quality blade in them, it's okay. I do that too, so far be it from me to say not to do that. And lastly, and maybe in sort of a related way, you might need a better blade if you're using the plane in rough duty. So if you've got, like I use this plane, this is my typical old Stanley number 4 type 11, and occasionally I put a high angle frog on here, and you've seen my previous videos, high angle conversion kit I should say. And so in that case, when you got a high angle frog, it's more of a scraping action, and that's harder on the edge than regular planing. Or you're just doing extremely figured wood all the time, and you need, this is not a run-of-the-mill situation, but if you're doing the highly figured wood all the time, you need to go the extra mile probably, and in that case, you know, your output may depend on having the best possible plane blade that you can get. So here's my recommendation. You've probably got two planes that are your go-to planes, the ones you use, you know, more than any other planes in your arsenal. For me, it's the number 7 and the number 4. For those two planes, buy an extra blade and, you know, swap out blades when you need to. Otherwise, I think you should hold off buying a new blade until you know that it's absolutely necessary. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. If you liked this video or any of the others in my channel, please consider subscribing. Hit the like button, and by all means, leave a comment. Without further ado, we'll see you next time on Mark's Woodworking Challenges.